If there's one thing this month in New York City has made very clear to me, it's this. The way we move through our day-to-day lives affects us far more than we realize, not just physically, but mentally. And sometimes the smallest shifts, like how you get to the grocery store, can completely change how your brain is working. Hi, I'm Michelle, and on my channel we talk about creating a peaceful, confident life after 50, especially if you're living alone, traveling solo, or navigating retirement. Back home in the Midwest, my life is very straightforward. I get into my car and I go where I need to go. I park. I carry things from the store without much thought. It's easy, efficient, and familiar. I don't have to think about it because I've done it so many times before. But here in New York City, nothing is automatic. Every single time I leave the apartment, I have to make a decision. Am I taking the subway? Would it be faster to grab a taxi? Should I just walk? And I'll find myself standing there for a minute thinking it through, weighing what makes the most sense at that moment, instead of just defaulting to habit. Even grocery shopping feels completely different. At home, I can fill my cart, load everything into my car, take my time bringing it inside. If it takes 2 or 3 trips, it doesn't matter. But here, I have to think ahead. I'm staying in a brownstone on the 3rd floor, and there are stairs just to get into the building, and then more stairs to get up to the apartment. Whatever I buy, I'm carrying it all in one trip. So I plan differently, I shop differently, I even think differently about what I actually need. When you're in a familiar environment, your brain runs on autopilot. It's efficient, which feels good, but it also means you're not really challenging it. You're just repeating patterns that have already been wired in. But when you travel, especially on your own, that autopilot shuts off. Your brain has to wake up. It has to pay attention. It has to make decisions in real time. And that process, figuring things out, adjusting, choosing, is exactly what makes your brain strong. There's actually a lot of research now that supports this. A 2024 study found that older adults who engage in long-distance travel tend to have better memory and lower risk of cognitive decline. And when you really think about what travel requires of you, it makes complete sense. You're constantly learning, you're navigating new environments, you're reading signs, listening for directions, observing people, and making decisions. You're using parts of your brain that don't get used in the same way when you're at home going through your normal routine. And because you're alone, you don't have someone else doing that thinking for you. You are fully engaged in your own experience. I've noticed that even my senses feel sharper here. I'm more aware of what's going on around me. The sounds, the pace, the energy of the city, it all feels more vivid. And I think that's because when you're out of your routine, your brain is paying closer attention. It's processing more information, which keeps it alive and flexible. And that flexibility, what they call neuroplasticity, is really what we're trying to hold on to as we get older. It's your brain's ability to form new connections, to adapt, to keep learning instead of settling into the same patterns over and over again. There are moments here where I don't get it right. I've taken the wrong train. I've walked farther than I needed to. I've carried groceries that were a little too heavy, and halfway back to my apartment, I'm thinking, okay, this was not my best plan. But that's actually part of it, because every time I adjust, every time I figure out something new, my brain is working. It's learning. It builds confidence where you start to trust yourself more. You realize that you can handle things even when they're unfamiliar. We've spent so many years taking care of other people, managing households, keeping everything running. But a lot of that happened in environments that we knew really well. Solo travel shifts that dynamic. It puts you in a position where you are making decisions just for yourself, in a place that doesn't feel automatic. It sharpens you, but it also expands you. Another thing I've noticed is how different my stress feels here. Because yes, there are moments of stress when you're figuring things out, but it's not the same kind of stress as everyday life back home. It's not the constant pressure of responsibilities or being the person everyone relies on. And what replaces it is a more present, focused kind of energy. You're engaged in what you're doing instead of mentally juggling 10 other things. And that shift alone is incredibly healthy for your brain. It lowers that constant background stress and gives your mind room to reset. There's also this subtle layer of connection that happens when you're traveling alone, not in a big, overwhelming way, but in these small, meaningful moments. A quick conversation, asking a question, even just being aware of the people around you and feeling part of the environment. Because one of the biggest risks to our mental health as we get older is isolation. And solo travel, even though you're technically alone, often creates more opportunities for connection than staying in your routine ever does. You're out in the world, interacting and present. And all of that feeds your brain in a really positive way. So when I think about this experience, I don't see it as something extra or indulgent. I see it as something essential, because it's not just about being in New York City. It's about what being here is doing to me. It's waking me up. It's reminding me that I can still learn, adapt, and figure things out in real time. And you don't have to come to New York to experience that. It could just be as simple as going somewhere new, trying a different routine, or even just changing how you do something familiar. The goal isn't the destination, it's the disruption of routine. Because routine, as comfortable as it is, can also limit us. I want a life that feels engaged and alive and keeps me thinking, learning, and noticing. Thank you so much for watching.